Okay, so this is another one from a series video post-its for my daughter for someday. Um, How I Met Your Mother. I have to go back a little bit. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the time before there because there was some ugly stuff going on. So I used to work for an oil and engine analysis firm called Faber Laboratories while I was in college. And they hired me and did experiments working on a spectrograph, atomic absorption. Anyway, so that was my job, but I had to travel all over, and I mean all over Southern and Northern California. So we used to have an office in San Francisco, so I used to fly up to San Francisco every other weekend, and I had an apartment up there, and then do my work, travel all over the place, and then come back and forth, back and forth. And I did that for several years. Saw a lot of the country. Ended up working with I'm just going to say friend, John. Some people that know me know what that means. So John bought this company, and he bought it for the sole purpose of moving to Oregon. So while I was working for him, and this is so unlike me. Most of my friends we were born in Southern California. We grew up there, raised families, and never moved. So it was my path. But I know a few friends moved out of state, but not too many. So he said, would you like to go to Oregon? So this is something that's totally foreign to me. Had no idea, didn't know anybody up there. And I just said, I need a new life. So I moved everything up to Oregon, fell in love with Oregon. I mean, it was so beautiful. Sorry, LA, so unlike LA. Trees and rivers everywhere. People were super nice, no traffic. I mean, the whole 9 yards. Um, anyway, this little blonde girl walks into his place, and I saw her, and I was just like devastated. I just couldn't keep my eyes off her. She was just so beautiful. Years later, I found out she saying, "Well, there's no way I'm going to date that guy," because I guess I was way over obvious. And so time went on, and talked to her occasionally. And I knew she used to go out with friends, and there was this guy that was 6'7", and I invited her out to dinner, and she said I can't. I said, "Oh, I know, your friend Brian," and I knew who he was because, yeah. Anyway, and then she said, "No, no, that's a friend of mine that we used to work with together at a computer software company." I thought, oh, okay. So me being me, sneaky, I'll have to admit that. But I was determined to go out with this girl. And what I did is I made an invitation. Of course, I designed the invitation, did this thing, and it was kind of like a penguin, dressed in a tuxedo, and he was carrying this dome, and it was kind of like a dinner thing, and whatever, kind of corny, I know. Anyway, it invited her to this place that was along the river for Death by Chocolate. And of course, the only way you can get this invitation, I constructed this little, looked like a pie wedge, a red pie wedge, but you had to break it open to get the invitation. So she did that, and she accepted, but apparently I was so over the top I couldn't stop talking, and I talked through the whole dinner. I talked through death by chocolate, and I just figured, okay, well, I got my date in there, and that was it. A few days later, I was invited to her house. Well, actually, her mom's house, and it's in Rogers Mountain. That was that little post-it note that what this story is about. Of course, the story is really short in the post-it note. That's why I'm doing these videos for my daughter. Anyway, so Rogers Mountain is on a little mountain. You have to go through these windy roads. There's no lights, no signs. And she was saying, okay, there's this kind of tractor out in the front, and right there you're going to turn right on there, and then you follow the road up, and then you go up, and then there's going to be kind of some, I don't know. She was explaining how to get there, and eventually I made it up there, and brought flowers, and me being who I am. She goes, oh, thank you. And I said, no, these are for your mother. Sneaky. Oh, dang. Anyway. So that was kind of like, actually, the first date before we went to, I forgot the name of the little restaurant on the river there. But later I found out her mother said, if you don't marry him, I am. So I guess if you make an impression on the mother, you have another person fighting on your side. Sneaky, I guess, I know. Anyway, so time went on. I was kind of totally in love. And then she invited me to her house to make this, she was making dinner for me. And she brought up this roast. I mean, this thing was huge. And I was thinking, okay, there must be a whole bunch of other people coming here. I said, who else is coming? She said, no, it's just me and you. And I cut into that roast and tasted it. It tasted like nothing I've ever tasted in my life. It was farm grass-fed beef, and it tasted completely different. And I was thinking, oh, I'm a dead man. She looks like that. She's intelligent, like you can't believe. And she cooks like this. Oh. Anyway, within 3 weeks, I asked her to marry me. Of course, she said no for a while. Eventually, after 3 months, she said yes. And we decided to get married in Kauai. Now, I love Hawaii, and I've been to several of the islands, but she went to Kauai a long time ago, and she wanted me to see it. So I said, great, let's kind of go to Hawaii, and we'll just get married there. So I didn't know, but Hawaii is very strict on being married there. You need to get a rubella vaccination, because way back in the day, the white settlers almost killed everybody on the islands from just rubella, measles. So now it's a requirement. That's just what they do. And she knew about that, so she got her test before. And, you know, we were on Oahu, which is pretty much LA with a beach, big city, but a lot of stuff to do there, and a lot of restaurants and stuff, and that was fine. But the next week we were going to Kauai to get married. So we found a coordinator, and because it's a small island, the coordinator said, go anywhere on this island, find a place you want to be married at, I'll arrange everything, I'll do everything. So I thought, oh, this is great. So anyway, on the day of the wedding, we went to the Capitol or something like that, City Hall, and they said, we don't issue license for marriage. And I'm thinking, oh, we're getting married in like 4 hours. And they said, well, they're subcontract. So we had to go to this feed store, and they said they didn't do it. And then there was all these different places, little mom and pop shops, and we found one. It was actually a boatyard. And some of my friends know this story, but not everything about this story. Um, and they looked at it and they said, "Oh, we can't accept that." And I said, "Well, we have to." They said, it's not signed by a doctor. It has to be signed by a doctor." So this is the day of the wedding. And we headed out of there because we only had like an hour, hour and a half to meet the coordinator at this little place on a beach, deserted beach. It was actually called Anahola. It was beautiful. As you drive into this deserted beach, the trees covered everything. So you were just like in a little tunnel of trees, and then you went to the deserted beach, and that's where we got married. So we were going to meet her there at a certain time. She was bringing the preacher and doing all the other stuff, and we needed to be there. So we headed to the hospital in town, and we tried to find a doctor to sign off on this because she had a nurse practitioner, or kind of a PhD, but not a doctor, sign it. And he goes, "Oh, this is always happening." So this pathologist just signed his name to it. He goes, "Oh, I've seen this before." So we ran back to the boatyard and, we hand him the paper. So we're signing the documents, and I signed it, Stephen Melendrez. And she looks at me, she said, "Who's Melendrez?" And I said, "That's me." When I sign my paintings, it's been Nevets, and it's been Stephen backwards. And when we went out for dinner, it was Nevets' party of two. And so she just figured my name wasn't, people don't check somebody's ID to see if you're the right person. But, she thought she was writing her name Karen Nevets on things just to see what it looked like. Anyway, so the people said, "Are you sure you want to get married?" And she said yes. So they filled out the paperwork. We went back to the hotel, got changed up, got on my makeshift bow tie and whatever, and she actually made her own wedding dress. This is another direction this woman goes. Anyway, so we got all dressed and we started heading to the beach, and we barely made it in time. It was just like we got there and like 3 or 4 minutes later, the coordinator shows up with a preacher, and she goes, "I was trying to get everything arranged, and because of the short notice, I couldn't find the baker that was too short a notice and all this other stuff." And she actually found the native Hawaiians that wanted to help out, so they actually made the hakla for me, which is the leaf thing, and the lei for her, and I'm not sure of the name, but that little hand woven crown of flowers for a headdress. And she found somebody to make the cake, and we had the wedding on the beach, and it was just the most memorable 2 weeks of my life. Eventually we came back to Oregon, and of course, Karen being Karen, for months she started buying papers from LA and circling all these things. I'm qualified to do that, I can do that. And she hounded me for almost a year of all the things she could do. Finally, I broke down and I said, "Okay, we'll move back to LA." I didn't want to move back to LA. But, I just kind of gave up. But like I said, there's things in your life that change your life that you have no idea. If I didn't move up to Oregon, my daughter Lauren wouldn't have been born. I wouldn't have married this extraordinary woman. Extraordinary, you have no idea unless you've met her and you know her. So moved down. So, it was kind of like trying to find a job, and found this, little job. Anyway, that is how things evolve. And that is when I wrote a letter to the museum saying, here's my portfolio, and that's when they just happened to be doing the shark show, and they were right in the middle of it, pretty much, and they needed some help, and the timing was just perfect. And of course, the story goes on, and if you know about my first 3 hours working at the museum, you know how that could have ended. But there's more to this than I can go on forever, but I'm just going to hold off here.